When I look out of the window now, at what is left of our city, it still does not feel real. Grey dust on the roofs, grey dust on the cars, grey dust on the pavements where people used to line up for coffee just yesterday. And the silence. A kind of silence so heavy that I can hear my own breathing bouncing back from the walls. It all started on November 25th, 2025. It was an ordinary morning, or at least that is what I wanted to believe. I woke up like any other day. The phone on my nightstand glowed 7:12. In the kitchen, I switched on the kettle, poured cereal into a bowl, and tried to convince my brain that today's presentation at university would not be the disaster I had imagined all night. Everything felt normal. Water ran from the tap. The fridge hummed softly. From the street below came the familiar muffled roar of traffic. Only somewhere in the back of my mind there was that strange pressure. The feeling you get just before a storm. The sky still looks blue, but the air is already too heavy. That morning, I chose to ignore it. I dressed, swung my backpack over my shoulder, and left the apartment. The cold November air bit into my face as the door clicked shut behind me. I inhaled and caught the same mixture I smelled every day. Wet asphalt, cigarettes from the neighbor's balcony, cheap coffee from the machine on the corner. The bus arrived almost empty. I took a seat in the middle, leaned my head against the foggy window, and tried to mentally rehearse the key points of my presentation. Then it happened. I usually tuned out whatever played on the bus radio. This time, the anchor's tone changed so sharply that it dragged me out of my thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, we are interrupting the program for breaking news. Silence fell over the bus. A few people lifted their eyes from their phones. The driver turned the engine volume down as if he wanted to hear every word. We are receiving unconfirmed reports from Zagreb Airport. According to witnesses, the entire facility appears to be empty. A flight arriving from Barcelona landed in what seems to be a completely deserted airport. No staff, no security, no family members waiting at the gate. Nothing. I rolled my eyes at first. Dramatic reporting. Some strike, some evacuation, some technical failure. News outlets love this kind of thing. Then the anchor continued. Footage from the surrounding streets shows no pedestrians, no cars, no open shops. Residential buildings show no signs of activity. The only visible movement is a light layer of dust rising from the ground with each step of the few investigators on site. The dust appears to cover the streets, cars, and the airport itself. Someone in the bus whispered a curse. The man in front of me raised his phone, already scrolling for more information. In the rear-view mirror, I saw the driver's face, pale, eyes wide. A thought flashed through my mind. Dust, fine dust, everywhere, as if something had fallen apart into millions of tiny grains. I forced a laugh in my head and turned back to the window. We drove through the same intersection as every morning, the same graffiti, the same broken traffic light. Only my heartbeat was different. When the bus finally stopped at the university, I saw something that did not fit the usual routine. Police cars, blue lights reflecting in the windows, students and professors crowded at the gate like a flock of frightened birds. I got off and immediately spotted Jake. He was leaning against the railing, his eyes red, phone clenched in his hand. I pushed through the crowd towards him. "What's going on?" I asked. He looked at me as if he had just woken from a nightmare that was still going on. "You didn't see the rest of the news?" "I only heard something about Croatia," I said. "Like, people disappearing?" It sounded exaggerated. Jake let out a short, flat laugh. The entire population, Miles, all of them, and the people who brought that news, those passengers from the plane, they are gone too. Same dust, same silence. No more contact from anyone who was there. My stomach twisted. Maybe it's a hoax, I tried. A deepfake, a bad joke, some weird military exercise. Jake shook his head. That's not all. They are talking about a virus, something moving across whole countries like a shadow, like something walked over Croatia and left nothing but... He searched my eyes. Nothing but ash. The words from the radio replayed in my skull. Empty streets, no traffic noise, dust in the air, an echo of something we had not yet seen here, something slowly turning its face in our direction. If it's a virus, I said quietly, why is nothing happening here? Same daylight, same sun, same world. Maybe it's not a virus, Jake replied. Maybe it's something else, something that, for now, is still over there, or is just getting ready to move. His words left a cold trail inside my chest, but I still had my presentation. I still had a timetable. I still had the illusion of a normal day. Eventually, they let us inside. They pretended nothing was wrong. A few officers patrolling the area, a couple of notices asking us to stay calm. Sure, stay calm while entire nations vanish. Inside the classroom sat Sara. Even from a distance, I recognized her long, dark hair and the way she nervously played with the sleeves of her hoodie. She was the one person who had always managed to pull me out of the darkest places. She had been there when I stood on a bridge years ago, ready to jump. She had been there when I got the call that the flight my parents were on had disappeared from radar and never came back. I sat down beside her. "Hey," she said, as if nothing unusual was happening outside. "You're not scared at all?" I asked. She shrugged. "What am I supposed to do? Scream? I think it'll just be another catastrophe for history books. They'll close the area, send in drones, put up barriers. Scientists will write their papers. We'll watch documentaries about it. The end. The end for who?" I snapped faster than I meant to. "Do you think about the families, about the people who were abroad that morning and now have no one to call back home?" For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Then, the wall came back up. "We can't change it," she said coolly. "Breaking down won't help." I opened my mouth, but the door flew open. Professor Allen walked in. He looked like he had aged 10 years since last week. "Pack your things," he said. "You all need to go home. Right now, classes are cancelled." The room froze. "What's happening?" someone shouted. The professor swallowed hard. "A video has started spreading online," he said quietly. "From a supermarket. You can see people dying, turning, disappearing. And it is not just Croatia anymore. The entire Balkan peninsula is lifeless. That includes animals, plants, and parts of Italy are already reporting the same phenomenon." The word lifeless hit me harder than if he had said dead. Dead still means something was there. Lifeless sounds like nothing ever existed. "Go home," he repeated. "The government will announce strict quarantine measures within hours. Stay inside, watch the official updates, and understand that this is serious." When I stepped out of the building, the world had changed again. People were running, shouting into their phones. Sirens wailed in the distance. A car swerved across the street, nearly hitting a girl who froze in the middle of the crosswalk. Jake found me before I reached the gate. "You watched the video?" he asked. "Not yet." "You won't handle it," he muttered. "But you'll see it anyway. Everyone will." The bus ride home felt endless. The buildings outside drifted by like the scenery in a film that was about to cut to black. Everyone in the bus was glued to a screen. Sobs, angry outbursts, someone whispering a prayer. At home, I dropped my backpack on the couch and went straight to the desk. My hands were already shaking as I opened my laptop. I logged into Facebook. I did not have to search for anything. The video was everywhere, shared, re-uploaded, commented under a storm of crying emojis and insults. I clicked. The footage was slightly grainy, from a security camera pointed down a grocery aisle. People with shopping carts, kids in strollers, an old woman stretching for something on the top shelf. For a few seconds, nothing seemed wrong. Then details started to stand out. A man at the fridges dropped a pack of meat and did not bend down to pick it up. A woman pushing a cart stopped mid-step, one hand still holding onto the handle. A child pointed at something off-screen and then froze with his arm in the air. Then it started. Their skin paled, not in the way sick people grow pale. It was like the color was being sucked out of them, like someone was bleaching them from the inside. Veins stood out, lips turned gray, eyes began to sink back into their sockets. Someone screamed. A small, sharp voice shot through the static. It broke off mid-cry. Bodies began to collapse, not like fainting, like something had drained all the weight out of them. They crumpled onto their knees, arms bending at wrong angles, clothes clinging to bones that no longer looked like bones. Then flame. A short, violent flash, as if a match had been struck inside their chests. Clothes ignited, skin blackened. In the next second, there was nothing left but a dark, brittle crust that shattered as it hit the floor. When it was over, the aisle did not look like a massacre. No blood, no limbs. Only a layer of grey dust and smears of ash that swirled whenever the air conditioning shifted. I paused the video. My heart hammered against my ribs so loudly I thought the neighbors would hear. I wanted to throw up, but my stomach was empty. I scrolled down to the description. I was prepared to see the word Croatia. Some city there, some town. It said Vienna, Austria. So whatever had happened in Croatia was no longer there. It had moved, and it had done it faster than we were ready to admit. My phone started buzzing so suddenly I almost dropped it. Jake. Myles, you saw it? Yeah, I whispered. It's from Austria. I know, and they're saying it's not just there. Germany lost contact with several regions. Poland is completely dark. No calls, no internet, just satellite images of empty cities. A chill crawled down my spine. Not the shock of the first news. Something slower, heavier. The realization that this was not a local tragedy. This was a line moving across a map, and we were somewhere ahead of it. Staying at home makes no sense, Jake said. They talk about quarantines like last time, but this is not the old virus. This doesn't care about masks or distance. It will erase us with the walls still standing. What do you want to do? There's this scientist, Jameson Scott. He's been posting videos all day. He says this thing spreads in a pattern, from Croatia outwards, Balkans, Austria, Germany, Poland, like a stain. He thinks the only logical reaction is to move in the opposite direction, to keep moving as long as you can. I remembered the name. It had popped up earlier among 100 other thumbnails I had ignored. You want to run? Yes, he answered without hesitation. Me, my mom, my dad, and we want you with us, and Sara and her mom. We drive north or west, anywhere that is still untouched. If whatever this is crawls along the ground, we try to stay ahead of it. I put my hand flat on the desk to steady myself. And if it is everywhere already? In the air? In the water? In the sunlight? Maybe it is, Jake said. But sitting here and waiting is a guaranteed end. Moving at least feels like a choice. I did not say it out loud, but he was right. I had never been brave. When I had tried to end my life after my parents' crash, it was not courage. It was exhaustion. Now I finally understood what real fear felt like. Fear of total absence of control. No choices, no time. Okay, I breathed. Give me an hour. I will pack some things, see what Scott has to say, and call you back. We hung up. For a while, I just sat, watching the world dissolve through a rectangle of light. Reports from Mexico about an earthquake that tore entire cities open without warning. Footage from American highways where people ran each other over to escape, leaving bodies crushed on the asphalt. Shots of oceans full of dead fish, whales, and other shapes scientists could not even name. And above all that, the voice of Jameson Scott. He sat in a small office lined with bookshelves and bizarre little statues. His hair was a mess. His eyes were bloodshot. I do not know exactly what is happening, he said into the camera. All I know is that we could not have predicted this. No model we had ever considered this kind of absolute event. He talked about the pattern, how the dust zones spread logically from one country to the neighboring ones. How so far there was always a visible direction. How following that direction backwards and moving away from it was perhaps the only way to buy more time. Then he showed something else. Satellite shots of the oceans, endless dark surfaces speckled with floating white and grey masses, dead animals, temperatures in the water rising at impossible speeds. If you think the sea is a way out, it is not, Scott said. Ships have left, military vessels, fishing boats, cruise liners, their signals cut out. All we see is boiling patches of water and lifeless debris. I closed the tab. It was too much. Too many deaths. Too many endings for a single day. I went to the bathroom and turned on the shower. Hot water ran over my face and shoulders. Steam slowly fogged up the mirror. I stared at my reflection, at the eyes that suddenly looked much older than they had in the morning. I am not ready yet, I whispered, to no one in particular, to myself, to the world, to whatever was out there. But time outside did not slow down. When I returned to the desk, several new messages were waiting. From Jake, from Sara, coordinates, times, lists of supplies. It all looked absurdly practical. Bottled water, canned food, medicine. No one had put down the one thing we really needed. Instructions on how to escape from something that erased existence itself. I opened the platform where Scott was streaming again. A red, live badge glowed in the corner of his video. I have new information, he said, and it is not good. Hurricanes are forming off the coast of Brazil and in the southwest of the Indian Ocean. Their strength goes beyond any scale. The oceans keep heating up, and seismologists now talk about the real possibility of another huge earthquake on the San Andreas Fault, maybe bigger than anything we have ever seen. He paused. His face looked hollow. And one more thing, he added quietly. The phenomenon. The dust, the disintegration. It has not stopped. It only slowed down, as if whatever is behind this decided to hesitate, but it is moving again, very slowly, but it is. Further. Always further. I closed the laptop. So this was our world, our era, our ending. I remembered what I had told Jake earlier, when he sobbed into the phone, that if our time was short, we should spend it with the people that mattered. In a car, on a highway, in a park, on a hill, anywhere. I took an old backpack from the closet, I packed water, some cans, a flashlight, my phone charger, and a photograph of my parents I had not been able to look at in years. I slipped my phone into my pocket. The screen showed 4:02 p.m. As I stepped out of the apartment, I felt something different in the air. It was dry, not in the cold way, dry like a room that has not been aired out for months, where dust hangs in every ray of light. On the handrail of the staircase lay a faint layer of grey. I brushed it with my fingers. Powder clung to my skin. For a second, I forgot to breathe. Then I forced my lungs to work again, one breath after another. Outside, the world looked both unchanged and completely wrong. Cars jammed at intersections, people yelling at each other, somebody pushing an overfilled trolley loaded with toilet paper and pasta, as if that could block out the inevitable. Above it all stretched the sky, blue, calm, lying. The meeting point was an old parking lot at the edge of the city, behind a shopping center. I decided to walk. I wanted to remember this route, the buildings I had passed by all my life, the trees under which I had spent one night when I had run away from home, the bus stops where I had frozen in winter, complaining about late buses that would now probably never come again. When I reached the parking lot, Jake's car was already there. He stood, leaned against the hood, his parents beside him. Sara was there too, with her mother. They all looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I had grown older in a single day. "Myles," Jake called out, and pulled me into a hug so tight it knocked the air out of my chest. Sara gave me a quiet smile, this time without her usual ironic comment. "So," Jake's father said, "we go north, as far as we can. Whatever is coming, I will not sit at home and wait." I got into the car, closed the door. The engine started. The radio tried to force breaking news down our throats again, but Jake turned it off. In the heavy silence that followed, there was more truth than in every broadcast that day. I do not know how long we drove. The city thinned into suburbs. Suburbs melted into empty roads. We passed cars left on the side with open doors. No drivers, no passengers. Some of them already had that thin grey coat on their windows and roofs. When we finally stopped, the sun was low on the horizon. We stood on a small hill from which you could see the whole city, and that is when I saw it. Over part of the skyline hung a light veil, not fog, something finer, like what you see when someone lifts an old carpet and a cloud of dust rises up in slow motion. Where that veil touched buildings, their colors faded. Red bricks turned dull, yellow facades grayed. Trees seemed to lose what little life they had left. Branches sagged, grass turned pale. The streets below were not just empty, they looked erased. No screams reached us, no sirens, no explosions, only the silent, slow advance of the invisible border between still here and no longer anything. Jake's hands tightened around the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. "This will catch up with us," Sara whispered. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. In that moment, I understood that no matter how far we ran, no matter how fast, our ending was somewhere already marked. Maybe a day away, maybe a week, maybe an hour. But I also realized something else. I did not want to disappear without a trace, without a voice, without a story. That is why I am recording this, why I am talking, why I am telling you all this now, whoever you are, whenever you hear it. Maybe the world I knew is already gone by the time these words reach anyone. Maybe you, the listener, are not human. Maybe you are not anything I would recognize. But I want you to know that we were here, that we had dreams, arguments, laughter, pain, that we were terrified, that even at the end of everything, we still managed to hold someone's hand. As I look at the city slowly turning into a grey stain, I feel a tear slide down my face, not from fear, from grief, for everyone who never got to say a final sentence. My voice shakes. The air feels drier. There is a faint, bitter taste on my tongue, like burnt dust. I think we do not have much time left, and yet, when I glance at Jake and Sara on the seats beside me, for the first time that day, I feel something I thought was dead. Calm. The world is ending. But inside this car, for a few more minutes, there is a small universe where we are still just three friends who decided to drive out of the city for the evening. Maybe that is enough. And if someone stands one day where we are standing now and looks at whatever world comes after us, I want them to know this. We did not fight against the impossible. We only tried to stay human until the very last moment. And me. For the first time in my life, I am not as much of a coward as I thought I was.